طيب السلام عليكم وشكرا لكم لأنكم هنا وكده وإن شاء الله أقدر يعني الليلة I can give you a little bit of so I don't know, maybe interesting information that I can share with you from my own experience. What I'm going to talk about today is second generation and diaspora challenges and expectations. It's just based on my personal experience and reflections. It's not based on any statistics or figures or anything because I'm not a researcher. I'm just basing it on my own personal experience as a young person growing up in the diaspora, so a young Sudanese person growing up in the diaspora. I believe I represent the majority of young Sudanese growing up in the UK. I left Sudan with my family when I was 5 years old. I went to the Middle East in the Gulf region, and I lived there from the age of 5 until I was 10 years old when we came here to the UK. I grew up here and completed all my education in the UK, including the university education, and I currently work in the UK. My father's gone back to the Middle East to work in the Middle East, and my mother's sort of in between going to the Middle East and coming back to the UK. I used to be in a little community organisation called the Youth Factor, which was a group that was set up to sort of create social events for young people here and to get young Sudanese to interact with one another. And I'm the vice chairman of the Ajalia, Sudanese Community and Information Centre in London. So through my experience in the Youth Factor, I was able to meet a lot of young Sudanese from all different sort of backgrounds, and I was able to detect a certain pattern through sort of meeting all these different young people. So I believe that the young Sudanese in the UK can be divided into sort of 3 groups. The first group, which is the majority of the young people, young Sudanese living in London, tend to be Sudanese who originally grew up in the Middle East, like myself, and they came here at a young age and continued the rest of their upbringing here. And I think this is the majority of young Sudanese in the UK. The second group was born and bred entirely in the UK. This is smaller than the first group. The third group, and it's not a group that I want to ignore. It's not as big as the 2 other groups, but it's the mixed race generation of young Sudanese. So young Sudanese who are of one parent Sudanese and the other parent is from another sort of ethnicity or community. They are quite involved in the Sudanese community from my experience, and they sort of identify themselves quite strongly as Sudanese, probably British as well or whatever, but they do identify themselves as Sudanese. So these are the 3 groups. The other thing that I was going to talk about is, first of all, is the expectations. These are mostly expectations by parents due to family pressure and general worry of loss of identity due to bringing up children away from Sudan and from traditional Sudanese influence. So the first expectation is that children are expected to speak Arabic. This is considered a connection to Sudanese culture, and without it, the child will never have that connection with the country and will never be able to identify themselves as Sudanese. The second expectation is Islam. There's a worry that the child may not adhere to the rules of the religion as a result of growing up in a non-Muslim society. The third expectation as well is marriage. Marriage to a Sudanese. This is sort of an expectation. Growing up as a Sudanese, you're expected to marry into the community. The challenges, these are the issues that face the young people growing up in the UK. The first challenge is language. The poor or lack of Arabic means that the young people cannot identify with the culture that is dominated by Arabic. They feel alienated and foreign to it due to the fact that they're not able to communicate. When they are taken to Sudan, especially at a young age, they feel they stand out and are unable to build a connection to the locals and to the place. The second expectation is the expectation to adhere to cultural norms that the parents who grew up in Sudan in the sort of 60s and 70s have grown up with, which differ greatly from the current cultural norms of Sudan and the UK. So this makes the youth feel more alienated in Sudan as the country norms have changed dramatically, especially in the last sort of 20 years or so. the fear of the parents losing their children to UK culture means that they place very strict, tough restrictions on their children that may sometimes be unjustified. This may cause the children to rebel and cause a rift and a gap between the children and the parents. The children feel obligated, as another sort of challenge, to marry only Sudanese, which is difficult as they've grown up in foreign cultures and interacted with many nationalities and ethnicities. Also, the opportunity to meet and interact with different Sudanese is difficult as the Sudanese community is very dispersed and fragmented. This also leads to leads on to the division between the numerous Sudanese communities. Although we are growing up in a multicultural society, many young Sudanese grow up fully aware of the tensions between the different ethnic groups, political parties, and etc., meaning they're prevented from mixing fully with all the different Sudanese that are in the UK. As we see that sort of the first generation problems are transported from Sudan to the UK. There's also, the youth is drawn into two different routes. When it comes to Islam, they either become sort of extremist Muslims and adopt religious ideas that are quite extreme and different to the Sudanese liberal approach to Islam, or become unconnected to the faith. However, the good news is, depending on your take on the issue, is that the majority of Sudanese, from my personal experience, take a middle route that is religious yet not extremist. The second challenge as well is opportunities. Growing up in the UK as a British citizen, but being of an ethnic minority has its challenges and problems. Obviously, there is equal opportunity as a policy in this country, but there is also lots of difficulties experienced by people that are from ethnic minorities to be able to progress in the work career and in the work ladder, and that might create sort of a lot of difficulties for young people who may be talented and quite educated but unable to reach the same kind of sort of place in the career ladder as their colleagues and their sort of friends. There's a couple of growing trends in the last couple of years. One of the growing trends, and it's really becoming very, very popular, is families sending their children to study in university in Sudan. This being mainly medicine, but now there are other careers as well, or other sort of subjects that people are sending their children to study in Sudan. This has become a favourable option by young people themselves. So it's not sort of, a lot of parents at the beginning tended to send their children and people weren't sure how that's going to be. But now it's actually, because of the amount of people going there, many young people would, choose that option themselves. This is something that is not widely discussed as a good or a bad option. I can't give my opinion on that because I'm not an educator. I'm not too sure about whether that's a good thing or not, but I have seen the fruits of it. So I have seen young people who have gone, studied in Sudan and come back and taken up jobs here as doctors and so forth. So, but I'm not too sure whether in the long run, if that's a good decision or not. Another trend is young people going to live and work in Sudan and settling there. They all do eventually come back, so they don't stick there very long, even though they might be wanting to actually go and settle there forever, but it doesn't really sort of carry on. So that is a growing trend though. People do go for a long time. They might go for 2 or 3 years and live there and intend to actually make a career there or volunteer to begin with. Another growing trend is young people deciding that they will go and work in the Middle East. Sort of Doha, Dubai, and even Jeddah. Those are the most popular sort of city options. So there is a lot of attraction to go to the Middle East and live and work in the Middle East. That's all I could think of in terms of challenges and expectations. I'm not too sure about the future. I can't really see. It seems like a lot of people are leaving the country and going back to the East. That's what I have noticed. So I'm not really sure about what's going to happen. It all also depends on Sudan. So our future here depends on the future of Sudan. If things can become worse and people may not be able to kind of continue going and living there or trying to make a living there, or if things may improve and more people might sort of go the other way. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. I don't know. People want to discuss this.
يعني تكلمت عن حياة كثيرة يعني باختصار شديد لكن في مواضيع واسعة شديد طبعا. فكر الموضوع الأول اللي هو التصنيف بتاعي بتاع الجروب ذاتي تصنيف ل 3 groups. دي جات من وين؟
Just يعني.
This is your own
observation. Yeah, observation. This is what I've noticed. The majority of Sudanese tend to be. I have ignored one group, which was a group. I guess you can fit in the Gulf group as well. There's a lot of people that used to go to Egypt and come from Egypt, so that is quite.
What are the 3 groups again? Can you just?
So the first group is people coming from the Middle East. So go into the Middle East. Coming here, yeah, but they've come here at a very young age, so sort of.
5 and 10.
Yeah. And then the second group, born and bred entirely in the UK. And the third group is sort of the mixed race Sudanese group, which I've met quite a few of them. They've
So wouldn't those be the 3rd generation, the ones? Because for me, I agree completely with your breakdown, although I would think that there is a very important group you've missed, which is the group of the ones who had a huge sample impression in Sudan and have lived there after like teens, and that's me. After age 15, and that's where that love derives from. And those are very formative years, very important years, 0 to 15. Nowhere else but Sudan. Traveled all over the world, but from Sudan, and had a roadmap in my head. You know, which university I was going to attend, what I was going to do in Sudan, and then things changed in the early 90s, as we all know. And then moved over here to the UK. Completely new plan now. So, but yet to still identify, I have a leg in both camps, and until very recently, thinking, well, where do I really belong? Am I Sudanese? Am I British? Am I, you know, for me, 3rd generation Sudanese are my children who are mixed race, but identifying with Sudan because we travel more to Sudan than we did to Asia. But I think there is a group, I don't know if there's more like me, I'm guessing from friends of my parents who I met within the Sudanese community, there are this, I would call us the teenage Sudanese, who came in our teens between 10 to 15. And we definitely identify ourselves as Sudanese. The culture, the religion, the importance of marrying within the community. We all speak Arabic. It's not like we have to be taught Arabic. But yet coming to Britain and 15 to wherever we are now, those are also very important years because it's your late teens, your early adulthood, where you form your opinions about life.
That's definitely true. There are a couple of people that I know. I'm just talking about the majority of people, but there is a group that has come from Sudan. But I mean, from my experience, I haven't met so many, but I have met quite a few, and I think their challenges and the expectations on them are the same. You know, there's no difference. They're still faced with the same sort of expectations and challenges. So yeah, there is that group as well, that group of people. I don't know whether I can fit them into sort of the Gulf group, because I think their experience is completely no experience, but their sort of mentality.
Why would they be different?
I think their mentality would be different.
What's different about those coming from the Gulf, for instance, from those coming from Sudan? Is Sudan part of the Arab world? Or?
There is.
Why in your mind you are making a difference?
I haven't made the difference, so that's why I haven't put it in here. Maybe sorry, I didn't catch your name.
So my name is Nelly.
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 Yeah. Maybe she can shed some more light. I don't know if you've met a lot of people that come from the Gulf. Do you notice that there's a difference between your kind of group from there?
I haven't met people who've made the jump straight from the Gulf here. I have friends who've made the jump from the Gulf back to Sudan because they thought they should go back to Sudan and Mukhtaribin to meet them over there. And then they've made the jump from there, having gone back and found things were worse, or you have a certain level of style in the Gulf, isn't it? That, you know, it's not European, it's Arabic, but the economy is a lot more stable than Sudan, sadly. And the political situation is much more there's a lot more stability, and therefore resources are easier. And you go back to Sudan because you have the love for your homeland. You realise that, hang on, I'm actually used to that there will be petrol, there's electricity cuts. I don't have, so all these things. So then people start thinking, well, hang on, do I go back to the Gulf, or do I go to relocate to Europe, the States, or Australia? So I know friends to that extent that have gone back and then come again and then come to the UK, but come from the Gulf here. I don't know. I mean, I would hazard a guess that as you said, there is always this pull for all of us. And
Yeah.
I've got another question about one of the other points that you raised later in your article. There is this pull for all of us that we need to go back. We need to go back home. No matter how long we're outside, we want to go back home.
Yeah.
That's his home. I don't know why. I don't know if it's something Sudan or EU. But, and also, they all do try to go back and come back. Whether I know someone who's come straight from the Gulf and whether that's his interest.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to find out. Definitely. As in having two stops there. I would guess it would be an easier.
Yeah, it's quite strange actually. You think people coming from the Gulf would be a bit more sort of extremist, or
Yeah.
but that's not the case
No.
actually. They tend to kind of open up to the culture quite quickly, and I mean it's been a few years now. There was a time when a lot of us came from the Gulf at one time. That was sort of around the 90s, end of the 90s. All of a sudden there was sort of like an influx of a lot of people that came from the Middle East, from the Gulf especially. And it tended to be okay. They're quite open, so
I think we underestimate the
yeah,
Gulf and the Arab world is actually very open-minded because
Yeah.
the natives there are all actually educated in Europe or the States. And that was something for me that I went to a course recently, and there was a Saudi gentleman there. It was one of my first experiences to know a Saudi native in that group. And when I actually sat down by the first day of the course, you have all these misconceptions. And by the second day, I realized that this gentleman speaks about 4 languages apart from Arabic. He's one of 15 children, 10 boys, 5 girls. But he's so open-minded, and it was a real breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
We never talked in Arabic.
Yeah.
So it wasn't on purpose, but it was actually mindful of the fact that everyone around us were English speakers. But I did say to him, they'll say, no, I'm amazed. I'm so proud to be Arab. And that you always have this mentality. Sadly, I think with the Arab world and Islam, I think that's what I really enjoyed last week. The book launch was like, there's a lot of negativity, and people form an opinion. But when you have positive things that come out, it really balances it.
Yeah, no, it's not as bad as we think it is. But the thing is, I've noticed about people in the Gulf, Sudanese young people that live in the Gulf, not young people, but Sudanese in general, they always have a Sudanese club wherever you go, and they don't. It's actually when they come here, they mix more within society. I don't know why that is. I don't know whether because the societies there are so sort of enclosed in themselves. Everyone there is really nice, but there's always a Sudanese club, and the Sudanese people always tend to move together in their own little communities.
So would you say the fact that there's an organised community there where they have a club and that draws the youth to it, that sequesters those youth so that they're within that community, and the fact that we don't have something similar over here, whether it's by organisation or not, makes us more integrated and forces us to integrate more in the whole. And what would the protocols be?
Yeah, I think it forces us to be more integrated. Like you said, the fact that we always have this idea that we have to go back to Sudan. We're never settled somewhere. We feel like nomads, we do whatever we can. Even if you look at the professions that Sudanese people sort of go into, or young people go into, it's things like medicine or engineering. They're things that you can go and do anywhere in the world. So we always think when I'm going to take a profession, it has to be a profession that will enable me to go and do it anywhere. You do that. I mean, I don't know, if there was a group of young people here, they will say that when they chose their university degrees, they might have chosen it because, I'll get good money out of it, it will be a good prospect. But also you think in your mind, what career can I take that will enable me to one day maybe go and get a job in Khalij, or go and get a job in Sudan or whatever. So we always have that put in our minds for our families and our parents. So.
Shall I just...
I must say that this is a very impressive talk. It's very informative. And the subject is particularly important because considering our situation in Sudan, especially the prospect for building a democracy in Sudan, I think that the role should expected from young people who live in democratic countries, for example, Britain or America or Europe generally, even some of the Muslim countries which are going the same way, in Malaysia and Turkey and Indonesia and these places. They have the chance to understand what democracy is, they experience it, actually they live it. They have this, which is the main qualification for somebody to work on. So it is very important. I think that since you are associated with the community, I mean, it will be important for the community to lay special stress on this side of what can be done. I mean, to draw attention of the younger people here to this side of life, how it can be transmitted to Sudan, to other Sudanese, like that. So it is really important. I mean, this factor, and the talk is particularly important because it deals with this subject. One side which I would like to go further into is the problem of the challenge with the rise of Islamic fundamentalists among Muslims. I mean, in Britain we see it every day now, because especially these days. In your experience, how big is this challenge for Sudanese Jews? I mean, is it a real problem? I mean, do you have cases of?
I don't think personally, from my experience, it's a very big problem just because of the circles that I'm around. But I might be hanging around in certain circles where everyone seems to be pretty, taking up the middle way. They're not too extremist. There is a level of religiousness in the youth, but there's no extremism. However, we have done a parenting course in the Sudanese community in the Jammaa. It was a course that was sponsored by the Home Office. It was based on an American book called The 12 Steps of Parenting. And it was we got a group of about 30 parents and we delivered this course, which was translated, the book was translated to Arabic. And one of the issues that the parents brought up a lot in this course was extremist Islam. That was a very, very big thing. This is something I'm not aware of because of maybe the kind of groups of people I'm with or whatever, but the parents did raise an issue where one parents did say that my child was very close to going to Afghanistan to fight. So that was something that was, she had another parent said my child kept on going to the mosque and kind of adopting ideas that she didn't like. Another parent said I had a daughter who said that she wouldn't talk to the kuffars in school. So, things like that. So that for them was a big worry. What they wanted the community to do, they said we want the Sudanese community to bring sheikhs or they were basically worried about their children going and getting Islamic influence that is not it doesn't correspond to the kind of Islamic influence they grew up when they were young. In Sudan they said, we had Christian neighbors, we had, good interactions with one another, there was no issue. So we want our children to learn Islam, but learn it the way we've learned it. So they want us as a community to bring in sheikhs or to bring in people to teach their children Islam in a way that would be kind of, similar to what they've been brought up. So we're trying now in the Sudanese community to do something like that. Because it's something that's been brought up so many times, maybe religious lectures or social lectures by people to come in and talk to the youth and maybe talk to the families as well. Because, obviously we have to do something, but there's not so much that we can do. But this is one of the only things that we're thinking about doing. So yeah, it is a big worry for parents. It's a very, very